You're watching Channel 4, sculling along to Peterborough for the finals of the 1989 Power Sprint Championships.
Welcome to the finals of the Leyland DAF Power Sprint Championship. Our hosts for the second year in succession are Peterborough City Rowing Club, on whose splendid purpose-built regatta course you'll discover this year's sprint champions and the clubs who will take away the most valuable prizes in British rowing.
It's the sort of thing that a club dreams about, having a new sculling boat to shove kids out in, so that's what we're hoping for anyway.
The prizes were obviously a very great attraction because as a women's boat club we don't actually possess any fours. It would be very useful if we could lay our hands on a four somehow.
And the women are the second best squad in Marlow Rowing Club at the moment, and they don't possess a boat. So for them to do well, and if I can pick up a major prize as well, it'd be really something special for the club.
It is a very attractive prize. Obviously, from my point of view, an extra boat means another £8,000 free to spend on something else. And for anybody, despite the fact we have good sponsorship, that's a good thing.
All of the women's crews row in men's boats which were purchased for men and rowed in by men, and with men's blades, which are the inboards far too much. So to win either of the prizes would be fantastic.
It's also the day on which we'll be putting our oarsmen and women to the test in the final round of Channel 4's own challenge on the dreaded ergometer. Well, Dan Topolsky has been with me throughout the qualifying rounds. Dan, what do you make of the course and conditions today? Because up to now, of course, we've always been on a river.
That's right. We've got still water here, and we're racing over exactly 500 metres and three-lane racing. But there's quite a headwind coming down against the crews, which could cause them a little bit of trouble. But as long as it doesn't rise and fall through the day, then at least it'll be fair for everybody.
You've seen all the rowers. Who do you think is going to make it today?
Well, I think Steve in the single has got to be the guy, but Rory Henderson goes very, very quickly over the first part of a race, so he might give him a worry. In the women's fours, it may be Kingston's chance this time. They've lost out for the last 2 years, but it may be them this time round. And I think in the eights, University of London should be out in front, but Hampton School are going very well for a school crew.
It would certainly be a turn-up if Hampton did the business. We'll look out for your predictions later. Thank you. Well, while Dan goes over to the commentary box, let me take you through the first stage of our special format for the finals. For the opening heats, the crews in each of our categories have been drawn into groups of 3, all of them racing not against each other, but against the clock. The 6 fastest will then be seeded into 2 semi-finals. The 8s are first onto the water, with Dan is your commentator, David Goldstrom.
With today's crews drawn according to their finishing positions in the qualifying rounds, defending champions Tideway Scullers from Chiswick in London opened Heat 1 in determined fashion. John Beattie and his crew over 4 seconds quicker than Upper Thames from Henley, runners up to Hampton School in the opening round of the championship at Abingdon. Scullers clear approaching the line and in no mood to give up their title easily. Heat 2, Marlow closest to us in blue, Agecroft in the middle in the yellow bibs, Walton, the wildcard qualifiers, being one of the 3 crews from across the country who missed the cut by the smallest margin. This is Agecroft from Salford in Manchester, qualified 2nd fastest in round 2 at York, Stephen Goodwin at stroke. And Marlow, runners up at Abingdon, the 2 Olympians, Mark Buckingham and Jonathan Spencer-Jones at stroke and 7.
Set, go!
It's the Walton stroke, Brian McMullen taking them off, winding them up to 47 strokes a minute. If you're wondering where the Cox is, he's lying in the bows of the boat. All crews off nice and cleanly. Closest to us are Marlow, stroked by Mark Buckingham, who was 4th in the coxless 4 in the Olympics last year, setting into a good solid rhythm at 44. All the crews here using plastic blades and rowing in plastic boats. And it looks as if on the far side the battle is between Walton and this crew Agecroft. Stroked by Steve Goodwin, 23 years old. Sitting at 6, 2 behind him is Eric Caldwell, 42 years old.
And coming up to halfway, and so on the far side it's Walton who got the lead from Agecroft in the centre, 45.52. Now that's slower by more than 3 seconds. Marlowe, the crew nearest to us, just behind.
Good mixture here of youth and experience in this boat. Very effective boat. Here in Marlowe, trying to get back on terms with the other two crews. Blades going rather deep there on the bow side. It looks as if Walton in the red bibs there, into a very strong rhythm at 41, are easing away. Yes, they're easing away. Big, powerful crew with a good rhythm.
And coming into the final 50 metres, it's Walton who are going to get there first, but the time of Tideway Scullers on the left there, and they're not going to beat that. It's Walton from Agecroft in the centre. Marlowe closing nearest to us, but Walton get there first, and Agecroft second by just a couple of feet.
Well, good mature rowing from Walton, but I wonder if their time will be fast enough to get them through.
Agecroft, Eric Corwell there at 6, blowing hard, just showing how tough it is rowing into this wind. Well, 3 heats to come, but Scullers already with an impressive lead, less than a second between the next 4. Well, lacking the same drive that defeated Oxford University's ISIS crew in round 1, the schoolboys were now fighting for survival. Whilst in the same heat, Goldie, the full Cambridge boat race crew, were managing the windy conditions much the better, finishing in 1:30.7 to go third behind Scullers and Walton. In heat 4, Hollingworth Lake from Rochdale, drawn in the centre, went off course right from the start. Despite the umpire's warnings and the efforts of their coxed to correct his steering, the boat continued to veer into their opponent's water. With their blades interlocked with the black oars of Rob Roy from Cambridge, both crews were losing precious seconds and the chance of qualifying for the semi-finals. Rob Roy suffering the interference, but getting to the line first in a time less than a second slower than Goldie. Dominating the final heat, the University of London, power sprint champions in 1987, became only the second crew to break 1:30. So at the end of the heats, the defending champions were still at the head of affairs, with Agecroft in 6th place, the lone survivors from the north. But with Rob Roy granted a re-row for the interference they encountered earlier, the prospect of a third and extra semi-final for the eights turned into reality when Nigel Garrett stroked the crew home more than 3 seconds quicker than the Lancashire crew. Good enough to make the cut. But what of Hampton School, who early in the championship had looked capable of going all the way?
We've been doing a lot of hard training for national schools, which is actually next weekend. So we're just starting a period of light training up to that, so we'll be at our peak potential for nat schools. Whereas at the moment out there, we're really tired, because all through this week we've been doing very long pieces and very intensive work.
So the first heat of the women's fours on stake boats, Peterborough on the far side, Durham in the centre, Maidenhead closest to us. 4 fastest in qualifying at Abingdon, with Helen Smith at stroke, Alison Hope behind her at 3, the stern pair. Durham, who did well to qualify in 2nd place at York, Claire Campbell there at stroke with hand on head. And Peterborough, Jane Armstrong and her crew in the finals, thanks to a wildcard place.
Attention, set, go!
It's Durham in the middle there, getting off the fastest. Coxswains all having difficulty getting straight in these headwind conditions. They're winding themselves up there to about 47 strokes a minute. And all 3 crews off nice and cleanly. But it's Peterborough getting into their rhythm first. They're settling to 39 strokes a minute. Maidenhead rating rather low there at 36 strokes a minute. You have to try and keep it lively and sharp into the headwind. And Durham in the middle at 35, even lower. And it's Peterborough on the far side who are keeping it lively at 38 and moving up all the time.
And the Metcalf sisters, Caroline in the bow and Barbara in front of her at 2 for Durham as the 3 crews approach halfway. 57.55 is the time set up by Peterborough, who now lead from Durham in the centre. Closest to us, Maidenhead just closing on the northern crew.
Out in that blue lane, it's pretty hard there. The water's the bounciest there. But Maidenhead still a bit low, but trying to get back on terms. Peterborough extending their lead. Their technique's not great. Stroke there, Jane Armstrong leaning away at the finish of the stroke, but they're driving it along very hard, and they've moved out to nearly a length now. They're keeping it lively into the headwind, and that has to pay dividends. The headwind slowing all the crews down, making it very, very heavy work over the second half.
But they've got to keep pushing on. Remember, only the 6 fastest are going to go through to the semi-finals, and Peterborough now really getting the support of their home crowd, and they're going to get to the line first. Durham in the centre, just ahead of Maidenhead, and Peterborough there just over 2 minutes, and Durham by a couple of feet ahead of Maidenhead closest to us.
Well, honour satisfied for Peterborough, performing very well in front of their home crowd.
In heat number 2, the EastEnders from the Lee, runners-up a year ago, with Lorna Rundle once again at stroke dictating their race plan, sliced more than 5 seconds off Peterborough's time. Only to see an aggressive Kingston, winners of round 3 at Walton, go 3 seconds quicker in the very next race. Geography student Alison Barnett at stroke. Tradesmen's lightweight 4, averaging 9.5 stone, confirmed the promise they showed in finishing 4th at Walton, with the second fastest time and clear water over Scottish rivals Clydesdale, winners of round 2 at York, and here in the centre, moving ahead of the Oxford University students, Osiris. Whilst the talented scullers quartet of Karine Marwick in the bow, Kate Miller at 2, Jo Goff at 3 and Sue Smith at stroke could only manage the 3rd fastest time behind tradesmen, 1 lane away, Maggie Jameson and her Birmingham crew in the top 3 for the past 2 seasons were fighting hard into the wind for their place in the semi-finals. Their effort ultimately good enough for 5th place. These then, the 6 crews still in with a chance of winning the Janusek racing boat for their club, but Kingston now firm favourites.
Yes, we were quite pleased. We wanted to have a steady row and a steady one to begin with and just sort of hold back because we knew we'd beat Sheffield, so we just wanted to have a good one, and obviously it was a fast time, which makes it even better.
Yes, we are very happy. There's a very strong wind out there. We're finding it quite difficult, especially in the furthest lane. But we were very pleased with our row. It's very strong, very confident row.
Very pleased. It was a good, tough little race there, and we did basically what we wanted to do, which is just go flat out from start to finish and keep it neat as possible in this kind of unpredictable winds here.
Well, with the wind stiffening, conditions now look likely to favour the heavier men in the single sculls. In the opening heat, although Birmingham's Mike Horrocks on the far side and Gloucester's Chris Walmsley led the slow-starting Paul Johnson to halfway, neither could resist the second-half power of the 25-year-old scaffolder from Medway Town, who clearly relished the conditions. In the next heat, Nottingham's Simon Larkin, the national 2,000-metre champion and conqueror earlier this year of Stephen Redgrave in the 4-mile head of the river race, struggled for pace over this shorter distance, finishing half a second behind the Weybridge man, Duncan Nicol. The pair of them over 3 seconds slower than Paul Johnson. Out on his own in Heat 3, Steve Redgrave pushed all the way, knowing that to relax could easily cost him a semi-final place. Indeed, his lead on the line of 11 hundredths over Paul Johnson was short-lived, for in the penultimate heat, both Southampton's Edward Prager and Scotland's Ian Law in the centre were both well ahead on the clock. Ian Law, championship runner-up last year, winner of round 2 at York, the first sculler to break 1 minute 50. The final heats, New Zealander Arnie Lafleur closest to us, Rory Henderson in the centre, and on the far side, David Coverdale. 5th at York behind Ian Law, and delighted to get a wild card into the final. Closest to us, Arnie Lafleur, 3rd fastest at York, a semi-finalist a year ago at Henley in the Diamond Sculls. And between these two, Rory Henderson, convincing winner of round 3 at Walton and determined to get back the title he won in '87.
Rory Henderson, always a nice sculler to watch, taking off there. He's a very tall man, so he gets good natural length. Nicely coordinated arms, legs and back movement. And he's off at 42 strokes a minute, settling down to 40. Arnie Lafleur closest to us, the New Zealander. He's staying at 42. He's also a very upright sculler. He's a big, powerful man. If you just see his left skull, it's going very deep, and that's going to slow him down quite a bit. And that's inexperience, or he's perhaps not properly rigged, gripping his sculls a bit. David Coverdale on the far side, he's at 36. He's got the lowest rating. He's got more body reach forward than the other two, and he's also less powerful. But he's holding his own very nicely to halfway.
So just about 20 metres to the halfway check time. And remember, only the 6 fastest will go through, and that's the time of Ian Law on the left, and this trio are slower by almost a second, and it's Arnie Lafleur who has the lead from Rory Henderson in yellow, with David Coverdale now dropping away.
Rory and Arnie both at 38. Henderson trying to sit back into the wind there. Arnie just losing his finishes a bit, but he's pushing very, very hard. He's not letting Henderson get away. It's a great battle between these two. Henderson looking under a bit of pressure now. He's technically the better sculler, but that New Zealander, all that New Zealander beef piling on the power, and he's getting away. Henderson losing pace, he's down to 34. Oh, really struggling now, and Lafleur pushing on at 38. Very gutsy from the New Zealander.
And well into the final 100 metres now, and these the danger moments for Rory Henderson. He's going to have to work all the way to the line. Remember, it's about time. 1 minute 49.55 for Ian Law, and they're both past that now as Lafleur gets there first, and he's over 3 seconds down, and Rory Henderson even further back.
Well, Lafleur's sculling is improving all the time. That was a very good showing from him.
Well, these then the 6 fastest, but perhaps not exactly in the order we might have expected. Redgrave and Henderson, 4th and 5th behind Ian Law in the changing conditions.
It's quite hard with the wind. You've really just got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing against the wind. It feels quite heavy when you're trying to drive through it, but it's quite good to be it went anyway.
Very hard. It's a very stiff headwind, and I set off to do 2 lots of 30 strokes, but I found I had another 20 to do on the end of it.
Didn't go very well for me at all. I'm very light, so I'm giving the two other guys in my heat about 3 stone. And under that headwind, you just got less momentum after the finish of the stroke. So I'm getting stopped by the wind and they just keep running into it, so I'm knackered.
Well, the semi-finals, the next hurdle for our oarsmen and women, but first, the final of the ergometer challenge. Back with that in a couple of minutes.
Hello again. Time for the last 60 seconds of pain for the finalists in this year's Channel 4 Ergometer Challenge. For more than 100 competitors who started out from all around the country, we're down to the final 4. The man and woman who can achieve the furthest distance will take back home for their fellow club members the very latest concept ergometer worth around £600.
On the machines first, our women finalists. From left to right in the red and yellow hoops of Tideway Scullers, 25-year-old computer programmer Joe Goff. A personal best of 303 metres in winning round 3 at Walton. Wearing glasses, the defending champion, 21-year-old Gwyn Batten, who went 3 strokes further in York to set a new championship record of 312 metres. Also for Scullers, medical student and British international oarswoman Karine Marwick, the finalist for the 2nd year in succession. And in blue, Trent Polytechnic student Sarah Studholm, yet to break the 300 barrier, but 11 metres up on her best last year. Pretty even break by all 4 competitors here. Joe Goff, who began rowing at Oxford 7 years ago and finished 6th in Britain's Olympic 4 at Seoul last year. Sarah, well, she discovered rowing just 4 years ago. Joe, the tallest of the quartet at 6 foot, really trying to use that extra leverage. Coming to halfway and still only a couple of strokes between all 4. Gwyn, only 21, studying for a sports degree at Leeds. Look at that power, really stocky build. Karen, the Orkney Islander, who learned to row at Cambridge 9 years ago, 3:05 metres her personal best. Joe just beginning to slow here as Gwyn keeps the momentum going, just 1 away from us. Coming towards the last 15 seconds now. It's Gwyn who's got a lead from Joe, but Karine's just behind her. And it looks to be between these 2, and they're now stroke for stroke as they come in the last couple of seconds. And it's going to be on the last stroke, and it's Gwyn Batten who gets there first. Karine equaling her personal best, but the champion there in awesome form, defending her title.
Gwyn, congratulations, a successful defence of your title. Does it get harder 2nd time round?
Yeah, it was much harder this time. Yeah, it was, it's okay till you get to the first 30 seconds, and then from there on it's horrible. Really hurts.
Now, last year you won for a different club. How will Leeds feel about taking home an ergometer with you tonight?
I hope they'll be very pleased. I'm not sure, but we'll have to see.
You've obviously been doing a lot of training. You're improving your times virtually all the time. A lot better than last year's final.
Yeah, I've done less training this year, but I think I've done more time on the water, which may have helped.
So the champion retains her unbeaten record for a 2nd year, with Karine Marwick just over a stroke back, the better of the 2 Tideway Scullers on the day. Well, now it's the men. Wearing white on the left, computer technician Paul Rees for Rob Roy. 6'3", 14.5 stone. A couple of inches taller and a stone heavier, Marlowe's Stephen Redgrave. 367 metres, the championship record he set in round 1 at Abingdon. Next, 20-year-old biology undergraduate Jim Walker. At 6'5", the same height as Steve, but 2 stone lighter. And completing the lineup in Kingston's red and white hoops, New Zealand Olympic gold medalist Shane O'Brien. The tallest at 6'7", the heaviest at 16 stone. Jim and Shane on the right, and the first to react in these early seconds. Nothing between the four of them. Paul Rees, the least experienced, but nicely coordinated, perhaps lacking a little power, and also the height of this man, Shane O'Brien, really using those long levers, pulling back to burn up the meters. Steve Redgrave, one away from us. Look at those legs, really compressed, really driving with those strong thigh muscles. And he's got the lead coming into the last half, about 5 metres up on Shane, and Jim between the two, about 4 metres back. But Redgrave, the best of the four in coordination. The arms, back and legs all together. Jim lighter by a couple of stone, but doing really well here, only 4 metres behind Shane. Paul, closest to us now, beginning to struggle as Steve really powers on, coming into the last 10 seconds, and Steve's got about 15 metres up on Shane, and Jim still sticking close there in third place, but Redgrave really determined there, and look at that, 370 metres, a new championship record, as well as the title of odometer champion. A really amazing performance by this man. He really does go on and on.
Steve, congratulations. How are you feeling? And is there extra pressure on you to do well when everybody expects you to win?
I think so, yes. There's so many different events here that, to what I'm used to, are totally different. But I quite like the ergos and the sprint. I think I'm quite suited to sprinting racing. And it's really good fun. It's good having a crowd behind you as well.
So Marlow Rowing Club received the new Concept 2 ergometer, but for Steve, the job was only half done. The semi-finals, the next hurdle, with only the first boat across the line in each race and the fastest loser to qualify for the championship final. Briefly headed in the opening semi-final by Southampton's Edward Prager in the centre, Steve Redgrave's powerful rhythm put him in command by halfway. The Commonwealth gold medalist in Edinburgh 3 years ago, retaining his enthusiasm for this individual discipline. For the Southampton engineer who began sculling just 4 years ago and qualified in a faster time than Steve, this face-to-face meeting was proving a lot tougher. Coming into the final 100 metres, Steve was clear, with Medway Town's Paul Johnson on the far side, now overhauling Edward Prager in his customary second-half charge, looking for that fastest loser spot. With 5 strokes out, Steve was cruising to the line, saving his energy for the final, allowing Paul Johnson to close within half a length. At the line, Steve safely through to the final, and Paul Johnson hoping to be that fastest loser. So on to the second semi-final, England on the far side, Scotland in the centre, and closest to us, New Zealander Arnie Lafleur, 6'3½", 13 stone, and he looked very good, beating Rory Henderson by over half a second in the same heat. Ian Law, 1.5 inches shorter and a couple of pounds lighter than Arnie, but the fastest qualifier, and Rory, 6'7", 14 stone 2, and he needs to really use those long levers. Remember, only the first man to cross the line sure of a place in the final.
Rory was a bit disappointing in his opening heat against Lafleur, and he needs really to win this semi-final to be sure. Good clean takeoff there from him at 48 strokes a minute. And Arnie Lafleur closest to us at 44. He's out there in the blue lane again. It's a bit less fluent than Henderson. Getting his sculls caught a little bit in the rough water there. You can see him catching, throwing up a bit of water. Very upright style though, but he's extremely powerful. He gets good run out of his boat. Last year's runner-up there in the middle, Ian Law. He's looking quite relaxed, looking round a lot. 36 strokes a minute, more traditional body swing. He's a nice sculler.
But perhaps lacking a little bit of power, and he mustn't let the other two get too far away. On coming to 250 metres to go, and this a much faster heat. Rory on the far side, Arnie Lafleur closest to us, and they're 2 seconds up on the pace.
Lafleur's at 40 strokes a minute. Still a lot of water flying up from his sculls. But on the far side is Rory Henderson beginning to extend the lead there. He's looking very comfortable, sitting back nicely at the finish. Very nice sculler. He's checking that he's on line. Ooh, a little bit of a tip to one side there. He's got the crowd behind him. He's moving well away. He's well clear now. He's down to 32, and he's got it in hand. He just has to win this now.
And that's not going to be a problem for Rory Henderson, but the battle on for second between Arnie Lafleur nearest you and Ian Law, and it's Lafleur who's going to get there first, and Ian Law very disappointing in third.
Henderson, like Redgrave, was able to relax over the last 100 yards. That final should be a real scorcher though. Arnie Lafleur hoping to be the fastest loser.
The semi-final was about winning because you were guaranteed a place in the final. The first heat was very difficult to judge because you had to be in the fastest 6 times. And the final was about winning because you were guaranteed a place in the final. The second heat was about which meant you could win your heat and still not make it. So an easier race, but a different approach, really. It seems like the wind's dropped a bit, but it's still very, very rough off the start. But I was a little bit more relaxed with that one. I got an early lead, and I was able just to sort of take it down and just finish in first place to qualify for the final. So I was quite pleased with that.
So a duel to relish in the final. Henderson wanting his title back. Redgrave looking to add the sculls to his ergometer victory. And Lafleur, the fastest loser, hoping to surprise the pair of them. Well, on to the women's fours. 3 lightweight crews with an average weight of 9.5 stone. And nearest to us in blue, the Lee with 13-year-old Adam O'Neill coxing the boat lying down in the bows. Sally-Ann Petrie there at 2 for Thames Tradesman, not quite ready. Clydesdale on the far side, Lindsay McPhee and Katrina McCallum at bow and 2 with their hands up there.
Legs, legs, shot, shot.
You can see how rough the water is there as Adam O'Neill takes the crew off. Blades flying around a bit in the lead crew. Settling now, 41, and they've just got the edge there. They get into those first 15 strokes. Clydesdale with Annalise Rennie at stroke, setting the crew early into a good strong stride at 38. Good sit back there at the finish. Lee in the blue lane again, out in the worst of the water there. Lorna settling them at 40. Blades not quite so well together, but they do have the edge.
Janice.
Adam O'Neill calling the crew up, and in the Thames Tradesman crew, Martha Plessis. Their crew going along at 40 strokes a minute. Melanie Holmes at 3 up against her sister Rebecca, who's rowing number 3 for the Lee. And it's the Lee who've got a good quarter of a length.
So into the final 250 metres. Remember, it's the first crew that crosses the line that goes into the final. So it's the Lee closest to us. Tradesman and Clydesdale now an awful long way back.
All that hard winter training paying off now for the Lee. Pushing hard over the second half. 2 going rather deep there on the far side. And it's these 2 London-based crews battling it out. Both crews with well-experienced girls in the boats. Clydesdale falling back on that far side, still with a lot to do, but it's Thames Tradesman beginning to fight back. Thames Tradesman coming back all the time.
And the Lee have always been in front. Lorraine Kay there in the bow, just look to her right. But here's Tradesman, and they're really putting their effort in. And there goes Melanie Holmes asking her stroke Martha Plessis for the last final effort. The last few strokes to the line. Remember, only the first crew across the line gets into the final. And the Lee closest to us, perhaps with their bow just still in front of Tradesman, who are really charging now. The Lee closest to us. Tradesman on the far side, and who gets there first? You couldn't separate those 2 crews at all. They both flashed through together, and Clydesdale well out of it in 3rd place. Tremendous performance.
Wonderful, wonderful fight back there from Thames Tradesman, but still at this point, neither crew knowing who actually got the verdict.
And the Lee there really, really fought hard, but Dan, this one too close to call.
Well, it was the Lee holding them off all the way, but losing pace over these last few strokes. And Tradesman, the higher rating crew, all through the race, pushing, and just edging back as they come up to the line. Really impossible to separate them, and I still can't separate them.
Looks like a dead heat on the very last stroke, and indeed that's the judge's verdict. So it now depends on the times the 2 crews achieved in the heats. And Tradesman were the faster, so the Lee now have to hope to be the fastest loser.
That was very tight, right to the line.
Are you aware when you're on the water just how tight it is?
Yeah, you can feel them right there, but really you're very much concentrating your own boat, and I'm not quite sure if they'll seat up or seat down or what, so just keep going.
So the second semi-final, Tideway Scullers and Kingston, the heavier crews. Birmingham on average 18 pounds lighter. This is Birmingham. The runners-up 2 years ago, 3rd in last year's final. Tideway Scullers, winners of the boat 2 years ago. Sue Smith at stroke, declining the dark glasses. Between these 2, Kingston, fastest in the heat, and again intent on proving who's number 1 to their Thames-based rivals.
2 of the Scullers 4 were in the Olympic 4 last year, and 2 of the girls in my 4, Jennifer and me, were in the Olympic 8. The Olympic 4 got selected, and the Olympic 8 didn't get selected. There was a lot of hoo-ha about the Olympic 8 not actually getting selected. So actually beating Scullers, I think, especially for us 2, we thought, great, we've beaten 2 of the girls who went to the Olympics, and it's a bit of a, we should have gone as well, and we're just having our say now.
Well, she's a very determined girl, Alison Barnett, determined to have her say. She's taking Kingston off now at 46. Still see how rough it is. Birmingham on the far side. They're taking it off at 46 as well, and it's Maggie Jameson at stroke, setting the crew to 42 in that lovely, good, fluent rhythm that they have. Remember, they were third last year. Tideway Scullers closest to us, Sue Smith and Joe Goff. Olympians placed 6th last year at Seoul, and they're at 40. 2 missing water at the catch-a-lot. Remember, Joe Goff and the bow Karim Marwick did the ergo competition this morning, and they are certainly feeling the effects. They're well down now as they approach the halfway point. Alison Barnett, quick look to either side. Terrific strong finish there. And they've got a good lead.
This a much quicker heat despite the headwinds. They're well ahead of the Lee, who were fastest to this point in the first semi-final. In fact, 5 seconds quicker. And Kingston now in command from Birmingham, and Tideway Scullers with an enormous amount to do.
Tideway Scullers struggling now to get back into the fight. Sue Smith at stroke, very experienced girl, but it's Alison Barnett who's really got this Kingston crew moving so well. Kate Holroyd, almost a grin on her face there. She sits back behind her stroke. And Birmingham on the far side, fighting all the way. They've got the edge on Tideway Scullers. Tideway Scullers cannot get back at it. But it's Kingston, majestic now. Down to 36, they know they've got this race in hand. Birmingham still at 40, losing cohesion a lot here.
But Maggie not letting them relax, really digging in now. She knows that if she can't beat Kingston, she'll go for that fastest loser spot in this semi-final. And this race much quicker than the first one. And Kingston get there first, Birmingham second, and Tideway Scullers just can't get back. Terrific performance from the Kingston quartet.
Ooh, Alison Barnett really rubbing it in. Her crew absolutely delighted.
And Tideway Scullers there, something of a surprise, but Audrey Wedderburn in the bow, she's had the news from the bank, and they've made it through to the final.
Well, that race, there was an awful lot of aggression. So actually off the start, I think it was the best start we've ever had. But I caught a crab halfway down and just about stopped the boat, so I thought we'd lost it then. I was amazed to find out that it was gone through.
The top 3 safely through to the final, but spare a thought for the lead. Well, in the 8s, the path to the final was slightly different. The 4 fastest crews from the heats drawn head-to-head in the 2nd and 3rd semi-finals, with only the winners to qualify directly. The 2nd place crews hoping for the fastest loser spot. The target also for these 3 crews in the 1st semi-final. Approaching halfway, there was little to choose between Rob Roy in red and Upper Thames in the centre. But coming into the last 150 metres, it was the Cambridge crew, rowing for the 3rd time in the afternoon, whose longer and more effective stroke gained the vital advantage. And with it, a chance of a place in the final. 1:26.74, their best time of the day. So to the 2nd semi-final, Goldie versus the University of London. Remember, only the winner goes directly into the final. The loser will be hoping to be quicker than Rob Roy. Jonathan Hulls talking to his cox, Joanna Russ, and Nick Justice taking the Cambridge crew away, facing his cox, Lee Weiss.
2 of the top crews in the country here. Boat race crew from Cambridge have changed their stroke. Nick Justice has replaced Matt Britton, who's moved back to 6. Cambridge off at 48, and UL at 46, who are closest to us. Very strong, powerful crews here, and UL have the early advantage. Johnny Hulls at stroke. And they have about a canvas. And it's Cambridge settling into the lower rhythm. They're at 42, looking very well together and very threatening. Legs going down nice and hard and fast. It's a good sit back there as they lean into the wind.
Can Goldie get back on terms? University of London in the lead, and this a much quicker semi-final, 2 seconds quicker than Rob Roy.
University of London at 43 strokes a minute. You see good, solid, horizontal drive there. It's the 2nd year running this crew has been together, and they're showing it with good, fine rowing, good, clean blade work, and a drive there at the finish. Cambridge, their blade work not so good, and rather slow into the water, with a lot of water flying about at the finish of the stroke.
But not a lot between these 2 crews, and that's going to be important. University of London, 1 stroke there to the line first, and Cambridge really not too far behind, within a second.
Well, University of London in terrific form there. They go through.
Goldie in the fastest loser spot, but remember, the last semi-final yet to come. And on the stake boats, Tideway Scullers and Walton. Walton, who've done really well to get this far. Remember, they got through with a wild card place, and now a chance of that boat in the final. Scullers, the defending champions.
Scullers have Olympic silver medalist Malcolm McGowan, who missed the heats. He's back in the crew at number 7 behind John Beattie. John Beattie himself was an Olympic world bronze medalist. At 6, the gold medalist Clive Roberts, a lightweight gold medalist. Very experienced men in this Tideway Scullers crew. They're off at 47 strokes a minute. Walton nearest to us, not intimidated at least in these early strokes here, settling to 44. And it's just a few feet in it, with Scullers on the far side, maybe just have the edge. Walton Cox lying in the bows of the boat there, but this is Scullers settling into that powerful, powerful rhythm. Both crews at 40 strokes a minute now.
And this will be all important, and look at this, 1700ths quicker than the University of London, and that's got to be good news for Walton. If they can hang on, they might just get into the final or even overtake Scullers.
There's Walton really trying to get back on terms. They know it's against the clock. They've got to get back up as close as they can to this Scullers crew. But it's Scullers with a quarter of a length, striding out, lengthening out. They know they have to just win this race and they go through. Tremendous power through the middle of the stroke. Well in command.
Scullers half a length up, but Walton not too far behind. The seconds ticking away and they're outside the time of UL. But how close are Walton as Scullers definitely qualify for the final?
Well, the Scullers go through and join UL for the final.
Walton, they don't know the news yet, but in fact they've been denied by less than a second. Goldie taking the place as the fastest loser, and so the clash of the big three is on. Well, whilst our finalists prepare a chance for the power sprint public to see potentially the fastest 8 afloat. The sculling 8 demanding perfect synchronisation of all 16 sculls. Nottingham County Rowing Association's world-class squad preparing to attempt Agecroft's 4-year-old record of 2 hours 34 minutes for the 26-mile Loch Ness Marathon.
Welcome back to Peterborough. While our finalists are completing their warm-up, a chance for us to take a brief look at the world's most famous and best-loved rowing event, which this year, like the Grand National, celebrates its 150th anniversary. The event, of course, is Henley Royal Regatta. Dan, a former winner at Henley, now describes the magic of this thriving British sporting and social occasion.
To the public, Henley Royal Regatta is often seen as little more than an Edwardian garden party. But that belies the true quality of the event that began with a single day's racing in 1839, when the good citizens of the town saw an opportunity to profit from a host of informal rowing challenges, including the very first university boat race between Oxford and Cambridge. Today it's a 5-day extravaganza with a turnover of more than £1 million, but why is it that the world's top oarsmen, used to racing over 2,000 metres on still water, flocked to Henley to take part in an upstream knockout competition over 1.25 miles?
I think in particular I contrast Henley, where you're racing 2 abreast, with the international races. You're racing 6 abreast. 2 abreast is 1-on-1, and it means intense competition. You've got to think about your opponent and only your opponent, whereas 6-lane racing, you're really more concerned with the 5 other crews, and you can't focus on one person. And that means that you're a lot more scared at the start, you're a lot more wound up before the race. And then when you add to that the huge crowds that you see at Henley, the atmosphere, the fact that it usually is the focus of most British oarsmen's season, then you've got a pressure cooker.
The other special thing about Henley is the atmosphere. There's so many people here to watch in all different enclosures right the way from the start to the finish. There's so much going on and the atmosphere is electric, and it's really enjoyable to row at.
The most dramatic changes in the development of the regatta have come in the last 10 years under the chairmanship of Peter Coney. With top rowing nations like the Soviet Union, the United States and Australia now accounting for 1/5 of all entries, was it his intention to further increase the level of international participation?
I think it's very important if the regatta is to maintain its prestige and its importance to rowing as a whole. But we have gone to quite a lot of trouble to try to encourage really good overseas crews to come, and happily that's been very successful. So that most years, in at least some of the events, you've got a final which is likely to be between 2 crews which may be world medal class, whom one hopes one will be a British crew.
What of the future of the 21st century?
You know my view. I would like to see events for women in the regatta. I wouldn't want to see the regatta extending to 6 days in order to accommodate them. But if the special race for school goes because the exam dates have moved back so that the schools can all enter the Princess Elizabeth, there'll be a large gap in the Saturday racing program. And I reckon that there will be room for maybe 4 events for women. And I think that the standard of women's rowing in this country has improved so much over the last 5 or 6 years that one's getting to a stage where one needn't worry that there won't be a decent standard entry to fill those events.
So good news for women's rowing. This year, the regatta stewards expect the normal entry of over 300 to double for this 150th anniversary event.
Well, compared with Henley, the Leyland DAF Power Sprint is a young event. But over the past 3 years, some 5,000 rowers from 200 different clubs have taken part in the competition, with the top prizes going to 6 different clubs. So Dan, tell me, how's it going to end today? Are you going to stick with those earlier predictions?
I think so. I think Steve Redgrave looks unbeatable in the single, and in the women's fours, it's got to be Kingston, I reckon. They had a lousy time last year, they fouled up the year before, and they're looking very mean and hungry this time, so I think they're going to get it. And in the 8, I think it'll be UL.
So the sculling final, closest to us, Arnie Lafleur for Nottingham. In the centre, Rory Henderson for Imperial College, and Stephen Redgrave on the far side representing Marlow. Keen to win that boat for his club, as is Rory Henderson, who's just beginning to show his true form. The outsider of the 3, Arnie Lafleur, but on his performances in the heats, not without a chance.
Well, it's in the centre there, Henderson. See him taking it off. He's been very clean and good at starting, but here he's having a bit of trouble in this rough water. He's gone off at 44. Arnie Lafleur, closest to us, off at 46. Nothing in it in his first 15 strokes. Steve Redgrave on the far side at 42. He's such a well-coordinated sculler. His legs and back driving together hard. Very powerful athlete, so these headwind conditions shouldn't bother him too much. And at the lower rate, it's Redgrave on the far side who's moving up on the other 2. The New Zealander Lafleur, yet again in this blue lane, where it's really quite rough. He's handling it well at 41. Both sculls going very deep, though. You can see that. He's up against 2 of the best scullers in Britain. Redgrave at 38. We're a little upset there, but he's powering away, and he's so good over the second half.
Well, coming into the second half, and remember, this is not about the clock. It's first across the line that takes the title and wins that new racing boat. And Rory digging in here, but a mistake there.
Yeah, Rory having a little bit of trouble there. Lafleur, least experienced of these scullers. He's doing all he can to live with them. And Redgrave stretching out beautifully there. He seems to get that extra bit forward, that extra little bit of run out of his boat. And that's why he's cruising home at 36. No mistakes, and he's well on top here. Ergo sprint champion. Henderson trying to get up with him. Real battle there from him and Lafleur, but Redgrave dominant here.
And Stephen Redgrave, who doesn't get too many opportunities to perform in front of a British crowd, he's really going to enjoy this. He's clear, he's going to take the boat and win it for Marlow and complete the double, and he does it now ahead of Rory Henderson, who's a good second, with Arnie Lafleur in 3rd place.
Terrific demonstration of power sculling from Steve Redgrave. And Henderson probably a bit disappointed, but losing out in terms of weight into that headwind. And Lafleur, the least experienced, probably glad to be in the finals.
For the winner, Stephen Redgrave, Britain's Olympic champion at the peak of his power.
It was certainly the hardest I rode all day. All the others I was saving a little back, especially in the semi-final. Actually on time, I was only the 4th fastest qualifier, because I got a lead. I could take it easy because it was only the winner to go through, which helped me in the final. But I knew the final was going to be one, especially against Rory. He's a very good sculler. Very tired, a wee bit disappointed, but I think half expected to get beaten by Stephen Redgrave, really.
So confirmation of the result, Stephen Redgrave the champion, and he takes away the boat from Marlow. Rory Henderson and Arnie Lafleur in 2nd and 3rd, and each of them receive a pair of Jerry Sutton sculls. The final of the women's Cox fours. Over on the far side, Thames Tradesman. In the centre, Kingston, closest to us, Birmingham. Runners-up 2 years ago. 3rd last year, the only place they haven't been, 1st. Kingston in the centre. Well, they've been the pre-race favourites for the past 2 seasons, but can they get it right this time? And Thames Tradesman, with Martha Plessers at stroke, improving all the time.
Well, Kingston in the centre, favourites again. Alison Barnett at stroke, taking them off at 46. She's a little bit ahead of her crew, in fact. She's moving very, very quickly. Birmingham coming into the picture nearest to us at 44. They both dropped Tradesman on the far side there. Tradesman at 44 as well. That very definite sit-up at the catch as they settled into a 42 strokes a minute. Birmingham nearest to us at 42. Sue Welsh at 3, going rather deep. The crew looking less comfortable than usual. They're under pressure here, certainly. But it's Kingston, the heavyweight crew, already in command. About a third of a length. Reaching out, using their power through the stroke. Sitting back, settled at 40, stretching their lead.
Kingston's Cox, Samantha Burgess-Allen urging the crew on there as they come into the second half, but nothing between Tradesman on the right there and Birmingham closest to us in blue for second place.
This time Kingston are making no mistakes, driving into the second half. Stroke Alison Barnett, terrific lead she's giving the crew. Lovely drive at the finish there. Birmingham getting rather short forward at 41. They're fighting to get back to Kingston. The crews are racing for oars, they're racing for boats, there are real prizes at stake here, and already Kingston can taste victory. They're over half a length clear, and they're looking great. Tradesman struggling in this headwind, the lightweight Tradesman crew trying to get more speed out of the boat.
Kingston well clear, and the battle still for second place. Birmingham, who are closest to us. Here they are, Audrey Wedderburn in the bow there, Maggie Jameson up at stroke, really fighting hard. But it's Alison Barnett, then Kate Holroyd, Sarah Merriman and Fiona Freckleton, and that's the four that are going to take the first prize. But behind them, the two other crews locked together. Birmingham closest to us, Tradesman, who gets there first? Perhaps Birmingham on the last stroke, but there's the winners.
Aren't they thrilled? And at last for Kingston, third time lucky.
Kingston in a class of their own, but look at this battle for second place. Tradesman just ahead on the far side, but Birmingham on the very last stroke, touching them off by a foot. Quite incredible.
A real fighting performance from the lightweight Birmingham crew.
But let's take nothing away from Tradesman. They've really worked hard throughout the afternoon, Martha Plessis and her crew. But Kingston, a little bit special today.
Well, we went out there. We've had two very good heats, rode very well, but we knew we wanted to improve even more. And once we got to 250 metres gone, we called for a push, and we went really hard. And we just moved away. It's brilliant.
We raced well. We actually, the badge I had on was we raced Kingston last week, and they beat us over the first 500 by 6 seconds. So we knew we were going to have a tough race against them.
Kingston then, worthy champions, and they win the new Janacek Racing 4 for their club. Birmingham and Tradesman, each collecting a set of racing blades worth £600. So now on to the eights. The defending champions nearest to us. In the centre, the winners in 1987, and on the far side, the Cambridge University boat race crew, Nick Justice, the man at stroke. Tideway scullers, Ian Robinson there in the dark glasses at the heart of the engine room. Olympic medalists McGowan and Beattie, the stern pair. University of London really hungry to get their title back.
Ooh, Jeff Barnard at 2, nearly caught napping by the starter. It's Cox Joanna Ross calling them off the start. Stroke man Johnny Hulls for UL at 48, winding them up. I'm looking now for a stride. Scullers closest to us, looking very mean and aggressive. Staying up at 46 strokes a minute. Very hard and sharp on those catches. With 20 strokes gone in the race, that's about a third of the race road, nothing in it at all. A lot of water flying off the oars on the far side of the Cambridge crew there. Cambridge at 42 strokes a minute, moving well though. These are certainly the best 3/8 in the event.
We need this push. Use it. With the links now.
And UL in the centre now, up to 44, pushing hard as they come into the second half. Very fast onto the catches, and look at those legs going down. Very quick leg drive, and it's UL beginning to edge away. Scullers nearest to us, still at 42, but they're losing pace a bit, and Scullers really under pressure now. The champions under pressure, beginning to lose coordination a bit. The backs and legs, the blade tips, not quite biting. And it's UL driving harder and harder. They really are a tight, tough outfit, UL.
And into the last 10 strokes, and UL really in command. Nob Rokos, what a determined look at number 6 there. Johnny Hulls looks left and right, and it's UL who are going to get there first, but look at Cambridge charging on the far side for second. But it's UL who get there first.
UL really extraordinary, recapturing the title they lost to Tideway Scullers last year. Fantastic finish from them, a quarter of a length clear.
And the battle here for second place. Tideway Scullers nearest to us, Goldie on the far side, and Scullers hold them off by just a couple of feet.
Well, Tideway Scullers will be disappointed to lose their title, but credit really due to all three crews for a fantastic race. Cambridge losing out to their fellow students from London University, Toby Backhouse, the giant three-man, and Guy Pooley at 2.
Champions once again, UL.
Last year, Tideway Scullers beat us by 6 inches, so have to have just revenge for last year, I think.
After the good roads that we had in the heat, we thought we could just sneak it. But the University of London, they're a good crew, been together for a while, and we rode our best, even though they beat us, but they're worthy champions.
Much joy then for UL, who regained their supremacy. Tideway Scullers and Goldie both collecting over £1,000 worth of blades for their clubs. And so to the presentations. The champion sculler, Stephen Redgrave, receiving from Marlow Rowing Club a new sculling boat from Chris Thornycroft-Smith, Marketing Director for Leyland DAF. Kingston, outstanding winners of the fours, take home for the women's section of their club the new Janasek Racing 4. Well done. Whilst the University of London, the fastest crew over 500 metres, are once again the champions of the eights. Their reward, the boat they've worked for over 3 months.
So at the end of another season of power sprinting on Channel 4, we say congratulations again to our champions, Steve Redgrave, Kingston and University of London. And thanks to all the competitors who've taken part, and particularly to the 4 clubs who've helped host the event. We hope to see you in the future, but right now, from all the team here in Peterborough, goodbye.